professors actually use it.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
My name is Seema Johnny. I am the president of Rice Business Partners organization. And on behalf of all my colleagues and board members and all of the Rice businesses staff, I would love to welcome you all for joining us today. Thank you so much. So as you are seeing, you have seen in these beautiful kind of like screens across the room. This is my first time here, and I just love how many slides and how many projections we have of the name of our organization, Rice Business Partners. And I hope that you have spent at least a second looking at them and just kind of like connect, inform, and inspire are the three words that we have just centered our mission around. And we exist as an organization to connect the Houston business community together. And with Rice Business, we have a mission of informing our Houston business community through thought leadership series, events like the one we are hosting today with our speaker and roundtable discussions. And we hope that you actually, get interested in the topic, continue this discussion with your colleagues and friends, and through that we actually, inspire the entire Houston business community and reach out to a wider audience. So thank you so much for joining us today. Here, let me see if I can. Okay, so if you ever just go to our website, you'll come across this page. These are the logos of the corporations and the organizations that are our corporate partners. And through their partnership, we make events like this possible and other things that our board gets involved with, like helping the school with the missions they have, providing scholarship to MBA students here in the school, and other initiatives that we take on. So some of the brands, we don't see your company brand here, and you'd like to just come and partner with us, we are always open, and we'd love to have you on board as well. Before we just get started on tonight's event, if you're interested to join us, we have our next thought leadership event on April 19th. We're going to have a similar format with Paul Halby here. Mark your calendars and join us for that event. Share it with your colleagues and friends and neighbors and network and whomever, and just please come and join us. So without further ado, we'll just get started on our event here today. The topic, cracking the code, how to implement RPA for the business. And our guest speaker here, Jack McBride. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jack serves as the CEO of OnCue, a global labor and technology company supporting the healthcare industry. OnCue's mission is to elevate people around the globe through education and training with appropriate employment opportunities. Jack has over 20 years of leadership, operations, programming, finance, and accounting experience, especially in the area of process analytics and profitability improvement. Prior to forming OnCue, he served as the CEO of Orion RMI, developing financial structures that improved his clients' performance. Jack holds a Bachelor of Business Administration from Texas A&M University. Jack, please.
Thank you. All right, so this is a new format for me. I love it, but I'm not actually sure how I'm supposed to interact, so maybe I'll walk around or maybe I'll stand up here. I don't know. Thank you all for coming tonight. I like to do my presentations and my discussions as interactive, so please feel free to stop me and ask questions along the way. I think that makes for a better session for everyone. Don't be shy and speak up. And thank you to the Rice University program and to Simi. I really appreciate the opportunity to be up here and talk with everyone about what I've learned in RPA and healthcare and a little bit about energy, because I do come from there as well. I thought I would start off before we jump into RPA and talk a little bit about me to give you some context as to how I came into the position that I'm in today. I was born in Houston, but I was raised all over the place, a little in Mississippi, a little in New Orleans, a little in Colorado, and then back to Houston when I was in high school. And so that was 1986, and I've been here ever since. I went to Texas A&M University, And my first job out of Texas A&M was in the energy business. I worked for a process control system company that we built controllers for pipelines. And then after that, I went to a company that you guys have probably heard of before called Enron, and I was with them from January of 1995 to December of 1999. And that's where I learned all about that fun stuff of IRR and NPV calculations and how to value businesses. And my job was amazing. I worked in the Enron International Group, and we were dedicated to the Southeast Asia region. And so I was in my 20s, flying all over the world, doing pipeline and power plant development type stuff. And my education, while it was in accounting, my true love has always been in programming. And the reason that I went into accounting, this will date me a little bit, was because I felt like that whole computer science thing was just a little too new for me and wasn't sure it was really going to take off, and so I got an accounting degree instead. But I started programming at 10 years old in BASIC. My dad got me a little Texas Instruments computer, and I taught myself how to program in BASIC by reading a manual from cover to cover, and that's just kind of my style. So in December of '99, I left Enron and went to work for a brand new Duke Energy company called Duke Energy Merchants. And at that company, we traded energy-related commodities other than power and gas. So we did emissions, fertilizer, coal, anything that was a derivative of natural gas. And then I think it was November 2002. After Enron went bankrupt, Mama Duke is inherently a risk-averse regulated pipeline company, and they thought about all of these yahoos down in the deregulated side of the business in Houston were quite scared about what was going on, and so the deal flow just kind of stopped. And at the same time, I had a friend, is actually my wife's best friend from middle school and high school, and I met them both in college. She called up my wife and said, "Would you be interested in going into medical billing?" And she was a partner in a medical billing company, and I thought, man, I never thought I would ever be in healthcare, because my vision of being in healthcare is walking around depressing hospitals where everybody's sick, and it just wasn't for me. But at the time, it was a great opportunity, and I jumped into it and been having a great time with it ever since. And I'm happy to say that I still don't have to spend that much time in hospitals, so it all worked out very well for me. That was November of 2002 when I jumped into medical billing, and the company was called RMI Physician Services, and we provided billing services for radiology. Primarily, it was the Texas Medical Center radiology, so Methodist Hospital, Houston Radiology Associates, Texas Children's with Singleton Associates, those groups we did the billing for. And as part of that, I got to leverage my programming skills and build all sorts of cool stuff. And we also started doing some labor outsourcing to India. We were one of the early adopters of Indian outsourcing. And that is really where I started to see the value of bringing different cultures together. And, you know, their skill sets all over the world, whereas up until then, I just was really focused only on the United States because that's all I really had exposure to. So we built up RMI, and we ended up selling it in 2008, and I worked with the buyer for another 5 years, and then after that, we started OnCue. And what OnCue is really a support company. We support clients with our labor solutions and our technology solutions, and we're basically a solutions company. We don't want to be a billing company. And we look for the right way to do things. Sometimes labor is the only way to get it done, but we always try to do it from an automation standpoint if we possibly can. Our headquarters are here in Houston, Texas, but we have operations in Panama, Kenya, and India. Our solutions, our client list include hospitals, labs, medical billing companies, large medical groups. And with the RPA and automation business, we recently had the pleasure of opening a new subsidiary called QFamily LLC. And the president of that new subsidiary is actually with us today, Christian Schutz. We were very fortunate to be able to hire Christian, and he's taken the lead on developing it. Primarily, same kind of context. It's a labor and technology support company. Lots of RPA, lots of interest out in the market for RPA these days. All right, so I may have gotten this slide in the wrong order because I started with what and not why. But are you guys familiar with this book? Most people, a lot of people are familiar with this book. So Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And our why at OnCue is focused on providing employment opportunities and elevating others around the globe. And we have this opportunity to make a difference because the technology is there now to reach people that never had those opportunities before. So what we look for is we look for areas around the world where there's high literacy rates and high unemployment rates. Derek, how are you? Good to see you.
My friend.
So high literacy rates and high unemployment rates. And we believe that we can come in and provide them with the training that they need, with the tools that they need, and with the jobs that they need, and we can pay them at a higher rate than they would otherwise get in the current market that they're in. And all along the way, we are building stepping stones for them to improve their careers and encourage their self-improvement and better themselves and improve their quality of life. That's why we exist, and that's our passion. So with that behind us, I can jump right into RPA and how we're utilizing it in the industry. So how many people have actually seen RPA in action? I'm curious. So, all right, so roughly 40%, I would say, it looks like. So this is just going to be a quick example of what RPA can do and how one of the things that we've built in the industry. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a bot that is logging into a billing system, and there's something called the Medicare Beneficiary Identifier number that every claim needs to have that goes to Medicare for each individual patient. And if you don't have it, you need to go get it from the Medicare website. Very labor intensive for those clients who don't already have that information in their system. So this bot essentially goes into the practice management software, the billing system. It identifies the people who need the MBI number, the Medicare Beneficiary Identifier number, goes over to the Medicare website, logs in through a dual authentication method, which is an email method, gets the authentication verification code, puts it in, goes back over, grabs some information from the practice management system, such as first name, last name, social security number, flips back over to the Medicare website, puts it in, gets the MBI number, goes back to the medical billing system, puts it in, and updates the account. So that's what you're going to see it going and doing. And I'll probably have to stop it a little bit, but this is a bot in action. Hands are off the keyboard, and it's doing its own thing. So right now, it knows that the system isn't quite ready, and it's waiting for the system by looking at different cues. So it sees that there's nothing on the screen. You program that into it, and it says, okay, I'm gonna wait, and then when things come on the screen, it says, all right, now I'm ready to go. So it flips over to, this is the Medicare website, so it logged in, it opened the web browser, went to the Medicare website, and you can see that it is putting in the credentials right there. The credentials are hosted in a secure vault that the bot has access to. Now it's going through the dual authentication. It's going to stop it there, but basically it happened real quick. It chose I want an email authentication. Email was sent, and then it went in the background, got the verification code, put it in, and then moved on forward. Oh, I restarted it. Yeah, sorry about that. I pushed the wrong button. Okay, so that'll get us back to the spot. So it's going back to the Medicare site now. And you can see how fast it moves. So a human has to stop and think. A bot just moves right on through and gets it done. So now it's getting the information, which is first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number, and it's flipping back over and it's entering it into the Medicare website. Ah, I pushed the wrong button again. All right.
We need a bot, don't
We do. See why humans don't always get it right, but bots usually do. I'm just going to let it run instead of trying to mess with it again. Flipping over, logging in.
So is that real time showing?
It is. Yeah. Grabbing the information. Going back over, entering it into the website. Pushes submit. Going to the policy number and changing it, and then it's updating it. And it just cycles through and cycles through and cycles through up until it's done and there's no more left to work. So that's an example of a bot in action. So now we kind of all got our bearings on what RPA is and what it can do. Here's a little bit more information. RPA is computer coded. It's programs that replace human performing tasks, cross-functional and cross-applications. It's not walking and talking bots. It's just basically macros on steroids is really the way I kind of look at them. It's not physical machines. And there's a lot of talk and a lot of discussion about whether RPA is or is not artificial intelligence. My take on it is it's really not artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is self-learning, and it is algorithms that look back at data and continues to learn as you go along, and those types of things can feed information into the bots so that the bots can perform actions based on that. But the bots themselves are actually pretty dumb. You have to tell them exactly what you want them to do. Here are some of the things that they're used for. Opening email and attachments, logging into websites, moving files and folders, copying and pasting, filling in forms, writing to databases, scraping from the web, connecting to API systems and pulling out data through APIs, makes calculations, extracts structured data, collects social media statistics, and does all sorts of if-then. So basically, if you can flowchart it out, and if the computer that the bot is running on has access to everything that it needs in order to perform its task, it can do it. So, and it can do it, and it can be developed efficiently. These are some of the things that we have bots doing. Now, we have over 100 bots, but these are the more common ones. Demographic entry, I'm not going to read all these to you, but it gives you an idea. Claims, patient credit balances, the denials, we use bots for denials quite a bit. Those are popular, especially eligibility denials are very common. And then manual payment posting and handling payment exceptions is another reason. So what are the real benefits of RPA? Well, when we have our people doing the same thing over and over and over again, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I see a lot of people who probably know what this movie is, right? And maybe some who don't. But yeah, that's The Shining, by the way, in case you didn't know. Yeah, but the real value of RPA is the employee. It's making their lives better. because they don't have to do those same monotonous tasks that they had to do all day, every day. And that's what it's all about, getting the real value of your employees and pulling this stuff out so they don't have to do it. See, these are some of the other ones. Accuracy. Bots do exactly what you tell them to do. They're right 100% of the time, as long as your bot programmer knew exactly what they were doing and how to do it right. So they are highly accurate. There's low technical barrier. They access systems just like a user accesses systems. And so you don't have to go to the software vendor and get them to agree to create an interface or anything like that. You just build it and it works. Compliance. So they access credentials that are stored in secure vaults. And so from a compliance standpoint, you can use them. The way that they access credentials, it's actually safer because you have fewer people having access to credentials to do things because one centralized location is where it's all coming from. Non-invasive solutions, so they're like I said, they're easily integrate with all third-party and in-house applications. Improved employee morale. This one, I can honestly say, surprised me at how big of a difference that this makes. It is significant. Employees love these things as long as you do it right when you implement it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Productivity. Bots, they don't have to stop and think. They don't have to go on a bathroom break. They don't get tired. They just move. And as long as the systems that they're running on are responsive, you can get up to 10 times the production out of a bot that you can out of a human. Not only that, if you build a bot process, then you can deploy one bot and then clone it. And so you could have 50 bots doing the same thing, 100 bots doing the same thing. And so the scalability is substantial as long as you have the infrastructure to support it. Reliability, they don't call in sick. They don't take holiday. They work weekends, and they don't complain about any of it. And then consistency. So they do what you program them to do every single time. And so all of those little things that, oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that, or this way in this instance, and this way in this instance, you program it once, and then it's done. And one of the other benefits about this is once you do that, you have documentation of your processes that you never had when a human was doing it. It forces you to document your processes. These are things that when you should use RPA, and there are times when you should not use RPA. So if you have high employee involvement, doing high volumes of work, with redundant tasks, and it's logical and rules-based, and you can access everything you need to via computer, that's a good candidate for using RPA. For activities with low human interaction, it might be easy to program a bot to do it, but it's not worth your time. In low volume, if they're highly variable, so things are changing all the time, then, and it's not based on any real logic that you can put on paper, or if it's not accessed via PC, or if the data that it has to access is handwritten, then forget it. There's a lot of softwares out there who claim to be really good at handwritten. If you guys know of any, let me know, because I have not come across any that can do what they say that they can do. And this last point here is really important. Think of RPA as a solution that is better than having people do the same task over and over again, but it's not as good as doing it on the back end through the computer. So if you can get it done in any other way, via technology directly, through interfaces, through programming, then that is always going to be a more stable and more efficient solution than bots. But if you can't get it done in the time that you need to get it done that way, RPA is great because you can pump out bots and get them rolling in a relatively short period of time. Any questions so far? Thoughts, comments?
I have a question for Jack.
Yes?
How long does it take to program a bot?
It depends on the complexity of the process that you want to program, but in general, the processes that we program, assuming that the developer has nothing else to do but work on that project, we can start, and you have it all flow charted out, so they know exactly what they need to do. From the time they start to the time they have a solid working bot is generally about 2 weeks. And then after that 2-week period, you typically go into what's called the validation period, where you're running the bot, but it's not actually hitting update or post or actually doing anything. It's just creating this log. And then once everybody agrees that, yes, this bot is doing exactly what we want it to do, you flip it on and it goes. So 2 weeks to get it going, another week to verify that everything's A-okay.
How do you sell the employment involvement? You're basically, in some ways, giving the impression that you're going to be taking people's jobs away. You said they're going to be doing other things, but there's a whole level of expertise, in my understanding, from a bot replacing somebody to the next job they're going to have to do. How do you sell that to the employees?
That is an awesome point. And it's something that I did not take into consideration when we started this. It's actually further down in my presentation.
Sorry.
But no, it's great because it's extremely important. A lot of times our employees don't understand or they don't see the vision that we have unless we tell them what that vision is. And I am guilty of not doing that when we first set this up. And I lost 6 people in my company because of it. And so once you get through that first hump, though, and I think it all comes down to proactive communication. If I could go back in time and do it differently, I would have communicated with my employees better and let them know this is for you. This company is all about you. It's what we're all about, which is what really shocked me in losing people because they know that our company is for them. So, but we still lost 6, and basically the reasons that were given was because they're automating our jobs away, and nobody's going to have a job anymore. Well, no, you are the company. So yes, communication is critical. And how do you communicate it effectively? I don't know how to communicate it effectively on the front end because I didn't do it, but I can tell you that through our actions and through what the employees have seen after our implementation, they know that this is not a threat to them, that this is an opportunity for them. Because now we've taken people from operations, taught them how to build bots, and they've gone from doing work that is more menial, like payments posting and data entry. If we were taking their jobs away because of the bots, we're teaching them how to build the bots to take their jobs away so that they can build more bots. And there's a lot of demand out there for bots these days. I went backwards. Going backwards? All right. Okay. So I thought what might be, oh, yes?
I have a question. So when the bot goes to like Medicare website, how can it not be stopped by the Medicare? Like for example, before submitting a form, like there is an art like detection that it makes us choose the images.
Yeah, so the question is, I think, is when you go to websites that are specifically designed not to allow bots, and how do you get around that? You can get around some of that issue, and then some of them you basically have to hand it off to a human to do it. For example, I don't still understand why you go to these websites and it says check here to verify that you're not a bot, because our bots check here all the time. It doesn't really do anything for you. But the ones that do require human interaction are the ones that say, show me, pick the pictures that have the fire hydrant in it, or pick the pictures that have a truck in it, or something like that. So the way that you handle that in the bot world is you create the bot so that it hits that website. When it sees that, it passes it on to a human to solve the puzzle. And then once the human solves the puzzle, it hands it back to the bot to continue on. And typically, that's only done once in the entire session. So it's not like a person has to sit there and solve puzzles all day long. They handle it once and then it's done. Was that your question? Okay. All right, any other questions before we get going? on my journey. Yes?
Similar question on the logins. What if there's a token you have to access to get a 6-digit number or a text message MFA? Can the bots overcome that?
So that one would probably hand off to a person as well who has the, you're talking about like physical tokens that people carry around?
Like when you log into a bank or something, and you have to get the little number that changes every minute.
Okay, so there's different solutions depending on the specific situation. So if it's the type that you access via a mobile phone, we have applications that pull up on computers that mimic the mobile phone. So you can basically go and scrape the data and then bring it on and do it that way. If it's those physical tokens, it's going to be exactly the same as the other one, which is going to send it to a person who has the token, and then they have to log in and do it from there. So some things are not 100% automatable, but there's workarounds in a lot of situations. Anybody else? All right, these are great questions. All right, so our RPA journey. So how did I even get started in this whole RPA business anyway? I was at a HFMA meeting in 2018, and for those of you who are not in healthcare, that's the Healthcare Financial Management Association. It's where the financial people in hospital systems go to get continuing education credits and things like that. And it's a really big show. So I'm standing in my booth like a tree. You know, you've been to the conferences where the salespeople stand there and they are waiting and hoping somebody will come and talk with them. So I'm doing that, and some guy comes by and he says, have you heard of robotics process automation? And I said, never heard of it. Tell me about it. And the guy's name was Jake, and Jake starts explaining basically all the things that I just talked with you about. And I'm sitting there going, this sounds amazing, not believing fully that it would work, right? And so he says, hang on, let me go get my laptop. And he runs and he gets his laptop and he shows me his laptop and he pulls it up and he shows me some stuff happening on the screen. And I'm like, uh-huh. It was when he said, hands off the keyboard, that I went, oh man, I gotta have that. So that is how I got into it, because I knew that all of this labor, the repetitive tasks and everything that we were doing in our operations were perfect for it. I mean, the amount of volume that medical billing has is high. So it was that whole look, ma, no hands, that's what got me. That's what got me hooked. So I flew home instantly, and being the nerd that I am, I learned all I could about our RPA and went through some online training classes from the software vendor that Jake was with. And, I spent probably a month straight just learning it, building my first software, RPA Bot, and deployed it. And so one of the things I loved was you can get started for free. So there's a lot of free bot software out there. You can learn how to do it. You can build your own bots on your own desktop. And it was free, so why not? And I built a bot that actually worked payment exceptions. So it was producing. It was, all right, a value bot for my own organization. And I could see the possibilities with it. However, I didn't know exactly how to do it. So I literally said, okay, I got a bot running on this machine. Give me 2 more machines. And so I bought 2 more machines with monitors. And then I would have 3 of them running simultaneously. And I started thinking, well, if I need 40 bots, then do I need 40 cubes and 40 computers and 40 screens? I mean, that's not going to work. So I call up Jake and say, hey, Jake, what about the infrastructure? How do I make this happen in a scalable manner? And unfortunately, I left a voicemail for Jake, and Jake never returned my call. And I found out later, he calls me up and he says, oh yeah, I've left that company and I'm with a new company. All right, so who do I talk to over there now to get this documentation? He's like, yeah, it doesn't really exist yet. And so we had to go through this whole trial and error period of figuring out, how do we make this thing scalable? And I even went to the vendor conference where it was all RPA companies that were building bots and trying to build their new businesses, and that was the topic. How do you scale this? So it wasn't just me, it was pretty much everybody, and even the vendor was kind of like, well, we don't have it figured out yet. So lo and behold, though, after a lot of trials and stuff, I called up my CIO, and he figured out the infrastructure, and now all of it's in the cloud. You can have as many bots as you want. You can replicate them as much as you want, and so it's a totally scalable solution. The other thing that I learned through that whole process of building bots was you build a bot and it works and it's awesome and you feel really good and you're like, yeah, and then it'll start running and then it breaks. And then why did it break? Well, it broke because there was a flicker in the internet connection. And so you tell the bot, okay, then you have to program, well, there's a flicker. When there's a flicker in the internet connection, let's wait for a little bit and then go. And then, oh, there was a problem with the software didn't respond. And then there's this, and then there's that, and then there's this, and then there's that. And so you end up with it breaking. And you may have heard people complain about RPA doesn't really work. Well, that's probably why they say it doesn't work, because you have to be somewhat, into self-punishment to really be a bot builder. I like to say it takes about 10% of the time to make it work, and then it takes about 90% of the time to make it bulletproof. But the good thing is that learning curve, once you're done with it, you know all of these little things that are in there that are going to break the bots, and it gets easier and easier over time. It just takes that time. So it's like beating your head against the wall, kind of. So finally, we decide that we're going to buy. We got the infrastructure figured out, the bot's stable, and call up the software vendor, I want to buy it. I mean, I've never dealt with an industry where you want to buy their product and you can't figure out who to talk to, and they're not, you just can't figure out who to buy it from. And that went on for a while, but finally, we got to the right people, and we ended up getting our licenses in place and everything else. And so after that, it was, let's tell our people about it. And so I did. And that goes back to your point, which is, how do you let your people know and they don't start leaving the company? Well, that's what happened with us. Like I said before, we ended up losing some good people because I was so excited and I saw the vision, but I didn't communicate the vision to the people. And so it's really important as business leaders that we communicate what our intentions are and how important our people are to us. And is another learning lesson for me is it's something that we have to tell our people all the time how important that they are to us, because the fact that they left, I certainly wasn't doing a good job of that. All right, so putting this thing to the test. COVID testing really put us to the test on bot development and whether or not this thing's really scalable. So we had a client, who was doing less than 1,000, they're a client, so they're a billing company for lab space. They had clients and they were doing less than 1,000 procedures a day, less than 1,000 tests a day. And then they got into the COVID testing business, and it shot up like overnight. The system that where they were on required manual demographic entry and manual charge entry, and that was it. There's no injecting files into it, no automation whatsoever. It was just all manual. And so they came to us and said, can you help us? And I said, yes, we can build bots. And so we put the bots on it, and the volumes really ramped up. Initially, we got to where the bots were producing about 20,000 a day. We got there by deploying, at the time, it was 50 bots in the cloud, and we were running as fast as we could, and we were taking the source files directly, just handing them to the bots, basically, and pushing it on through. That was not the right solution for the long term, but we knew that we had to get it out the door. So we had to get those claims going. And then the Omicron hit. and volumes went up to 70,000 a day from the client's perspective, and we had to perform. And so what we learned through this whole process was don't just feed source files to bots, feed them through a brain system and have the brains do a lot of the scrubbing and get everything ready and then push the information out to the bots. So basically what we have now are source files that are coming into a SQL database. The SQL database does a whole bunch of scrubbing with user interfaces, prepares all the information, keep track of all the claims, and once it's ready for bot consumption, it spits out a file, the bots consume the file, and they go into the patient accounting system and post the stuff. Now, this was not the ideal solution. What I was talking about before, where RPA is not the best solution in this situation. Direct file into the billing system is the right solution. We knew that, but the system didn't have the capability. The great thing that happened through all of this is that the software vendor that we were using called us up because we had 100 bots running 24/7 on the system, and it was hammering them so bad that they said, what can we do to solve this problem, because our other clients can't book appointments because your bots are killing us. And so I was like, this is awesome. Let's build an interface. And they said, okay, let's build an interface. So we haven't finished that project yet, but we are soon, probably in the next 2 weeks, we will have a direct injection, and the bots will have served their purpose, and we will move on. But it was a great way for us to learn how to scale them, learn their place, learn the value that we can, create more relationships with vendors and software vendors and stuff like that. And we built a new product, which is the Brains, and that's an amazing product that we have. Any questions on that? Yes?
I'm curious, I mean, sometimes I hear at work when they say, I need to go turn on the bot, I need to go turn off the bot, and I think it's just the software that we need to stop. Do you also have like simultaneous, like the bot solution that feeds the next bot and kind of like just goes on?
Oh, yeah.
That one bot can actually turn on or so just kind of initiate the work of the other bot?
Yes, we definitely have those in place. So you can have different, so the bots can execute other bots as well. And you can have one bot that controls multiple bots. And that's, some software vendors try to set it up so that that it's difficult to do that. And the reason they do it is because one of them is called an attended bot and one of them is called an unattended bot. And the licenses for an unattended bot, which is the one that can just do things without anybody doing anything, are much higher priced than the attended bots. And so if you have an unattended bot that is kicking off all of these unattended bots, you've got a high price one that is basically replacing the revenues. You're not buying all unattended bots is basically what it is. Yes, sir.
Apologies, I came in late, but is there a machine learning or an artificial intelligence element to the software? Or is it all hard-coded software that's running the bots right now?
So the bot software itself is not artificial intelligence. It is just you code it and it will do what it's told to do.
Hard-coded.
It's hard-coded. But there's all sorts of variables in there so that it can make different decisions and stuff like that. The brains piece of it is the SQL side of it, where we go in and a bot, and I'll just give you an example. A bot will go in and try to input a claim, and it won't be able to, and it'll skip it. When it skips it, a lot of times the practice management system will kick back a reason that it's not going to take it. So it'll be something like the system is unavailable, or it'll be the patient demographic is missing a date of birth or something like that. The bot logs that and it feeds it back into SQL, and then it's in SQL, which is the database system, is where we create procedures that say, okay, well, when we get this, we are going to tell the bot to do that. So the bot then gets fed a new instruction, and it goes and does the new instruction to go get the proper date of birth, or just resubmit the claim because the system was unavailable when it tried. So that's how we make more intelligent bots. But our company right now is not doing any true artificial intelligence stuff where it's self-learning or anything like that. We're just, doing it the old-fashioned way at this point in time.
Thank you.
Great question. Yes, sir.
When OnCue works with companies, we've talked about the flowchart readiness aspect of it. Are the developers acting in a business analyst role as well and trying to build out these flowcharts, or are they already created and OnCue comes in and kind of just builds the bot itself?
So there is a lot of client interaction between the developers and the client, basically. And the way that we go through an engagement is a client will say, I think this is a process that's ripe for bots. We would like for you to build a bot. So we have a Microsoft Teams meeting where the videos are on, and the client will show us exactly what they want the bot to do. And then we're recording the whole thing, and then our development team goes back and watch that recording almost frame by frame, and they create what's called a process design document, which is essentially a flow chart of exactly our understanding of what needs to be done. That document then goes back to the client. They review it and say, yes, it looks good, or no, we're going to do this over here. Oh yeah, when it gets to this point, can you make it, all of that goes back and forth until we have a pretty good structure of what we want the bot to do. And then our developers take that and then they make it happen. Yeah. Lots of communication is required, obviously. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. How are we doing on time? Oh, getting close. Okay. So I'm going to take you through every single box on here and every single line, and we're going to talk about stored procedures and coding. No. I just wanted to put this up there because this is kind of the brains diagram that I was telling you about. So we have things that the source files come in, they go through different areas, and we ultimately are submitting through this system bot files that are then coming in, and the bots actually have the instructions here. They're working in the practice management system, and they're sending bot log information back into the system. And for those that get skipped because they were unable to work it, goes through different actions, and those actions get programmed into, okay, now I want you to go resubmit it, or I want you to go look up eligibility, things like that. But that's how it all works. So where are we now? We have a scalable virtual infrastructure. We have over 100 bot processes built. And that's terminology is also kind of a key thing in this. So you have bots and you have bot processes. And you could have one bot process, which is basically the program that you want the bot to do. And you could have 100 bots running that one bot process. Or you could have 100 bot processes and you only have one bot license, but you want that bot to do this one, and then you want that bot to do this one. So that's the terminology. So we have over 100 bot processes built. Over 120 machines are in the cloud now. We have global staff of bot monitors. Our monitoring is being done in Panama as well as Kenya right now. We have 24/7 coverage, and this was all a result of the whole COVID testing claims that are going out the door. And that's another point that I wanted to bring up was having bot monitors is really important because these things do stop. And you need somebody there that says, okay, it stopped, report back to the developers why it stopped, and then start the things again. So there is an element of human that you just can't get out of the process. But you can have one bot monitor for up to 20 different bots. So they're monitoring 20 different bots at the same time, and the bots are doing the work of at least one, but usually 5 people. So it's a pretty high return. What did I have on there? Integrated SQL brain. Okay, so yeah, that's the diagram that I showed you, the brain. These are the software vendors that are the big kahunas in the industry: UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, and Power Automate is a Microsoft product. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but it is part of your Office 365. Most of us are on Office 365. I would say that it is not anywhere near the sophistication of the other options that are up here. However, it's Microsoft, and it is integrated with all of the different Microsoft products. So You can not easily, but you can integrate it with your email and with your PowerPoint presentations and SharePoint lists and all of that kind of stuff. It's okay. It'll get there. So we continue to monitor it. We use it. I've coded in it. The problem is it's just not quite there yet. And they don't make it easy yet, but it'll get there. Lessons learned. Truly, your people will thank you. If you implement bots and you talk to them up front and let them know what your intentions are, that this is for them, they will end up loving it. And there will be a lot of opportunities for them to grow because of the bots. Communicate intentions to the staff first. The real value is really freeing up your people. It's incredible. Persevere. So 10% of your time is getting the bot to work once. 90% is getting it stable. And think big, but start small. It's easy to start a small project. Get it in working. Okay, yes, it's going. And then you'll get a lot more comfort after that. Now, these are some questions that were submitted prior to the presentation. And so I put them up here, and I'm going to answer the ones that I can, and then there are some that it's just I can't. But I'm happy to give my opinion to anybody who will listen. So first off, what are you most excited about with the new technologies in healthcare, such as robotics? Well, with regard to RPA, it's the fact that now I understand how we can make it completely scalable. For healthcare robotics, though, I think about the robots that are doing surgeries now, and I was just talking to a buddy of mine who was going to have surgery on his heart, or he had it actually, and unfortunately for him, he didn't get the option, but it was robotic surgery that comes in that is almost like minimally invasive because it's just very small, and the robot comes in and puts stents in. And I thought that was incredible. But he wasn't able to do it because he had to have a complete bypass as well. So they did the old-fashioned thing of cutting him open. He's doing well, by the way. That just happened. But yeah, the advancements in healthcare are amazing, not just with robotics, but with in other areas as well in terms of anti-aging and what do they call it, pharmacogenetic testing, where you can go in and get some lab results done, and it will tell you how you're basically which medications are best suited for you based on that information. It is amazing. So that's what's really exciting to me. How do you implement value-based care delivery models and financial models in your work? Okay, so how do you implement value-based care delivery models is a great question. And if somebody here knows how to do it, let me know. I believe in the concept, and for those of you who are not in healthcare, we're basically in a fee-for-service model right now throughout the country. When a doctor performs a service, we have CPT codes, and those CPT codes are a doctor did this, and we're going to bill for it, and you're going to get paid this amount for this code. And so there's no real tracking. There's a little bit, but there's no real tracking of the outcome. And so value-based care delivery is trying to say, okay, let's look at the patient as a whole, and we're going to compensate the care based on the value that was created for that patient. So we're trying to find an overall solution to increase the health of the patient, and you get paid more for doing that. That's obviously a very complicated thing to achieve, but there are models out there that people are doing it. I just don't know enough about it. Financial models in my work, well, I'm a data analyst. I love getting into the nitty-gritty. There's a lot of opportunities out there with the visual business intelligence tools for sure. Power BI, Tableau, I use those quite a bit. As far as financial models, lots of analysis being done in terms of projecting what Medicare rates are going to do and how that is going to impact different practices and hospitals. And, of course, there's the IRR MPV models where you're valuing your practice and that sort of thing. So we do all of that stuff. How quickly will we see adoption? I'm not sure what this referred to. I'm assuming RPA. And all I can say to that is it's slower than I would have liked, but I'm seeing more and more people who know what RPA is, which is great. Several people, a lot of people in this room know what RPA is. I would say probably within 5 years, my guess would be that most people are doing some level of RPA, but I'm always surprised at the number of companies out there that are not. Role of remote monitoring and value-based payments, I have no exposure to that whatsoever. So, and then what % of Houston healthcare industry players have embraced robotics process automation? That's a good question. I don't know the answer because there's no index or no survey or anything done about, who's using RPA and who isn't. But I can tell you that when I go and talk at different events, my latest one was the Tennessee HFMA, and I asked that question, who knows about robotics process automation? And the room is generally about 40 to 50% know that it even exists. Who's seen it? Still, it's like 5%. I mean, not a whole lot of people who have actually seen it in action. And Christian, what do you think about the energy industry? What are you seeing out there?
I'd say the same thing too. It's it's not very advanced when it comes to automation, robotic process automation. So it's a good opportunity for our business to go out and sell the product. Back office systems, management of risk analytics is huge. Payment processing at the gas station, we stick your credit card in. All that data gets put into central databases that are right for RPA.
And I'm going over on time, so questions? Yes?
So, as companies look to scale, historically they'd be like, okay, we have 100 people, high cost of living center. Let's first figure out how to move them to a low cost of living center, and then at least they're cheaper, so as the company grows, it's not going to cost us as much. With RPA, it sounds like there's not an opportunity where you first take that X number of people in the high cost of living center, first implement RPA to see what you can decrease, and then you can get to a low cost center. Have you had a lot of scenarios like that, and more or less like what's been like the overall bottom line impact for the companies as far as like they can continue to grow at that same fixed cost, they can downsize significantly? Like, how would you sell that story to the executive team?
Yeah, so I will say that the benefits that most people get from RPA take a while to actually make it so that it's a substantial savings. And it's simply because there's so many little processes that get automated. And the good thing is that there's value immediately. It's a lower cost, and it is a process that doesn't break. And so the value comes immediately. But because there's so many processes that are doing high volume but not super high volume work, it takes a while for it to build up and you get 50 bots going within your organization. So it just takes a while to scale it. That's what we're seeing. Our clients come to us and they want one bot to do something, then they want another, and then they want another. And a year later, they've got 12 bots. And then 2 years later, they got 20 bots. It just takes a lot of time. Yeah.
Some feedback I received recently. I was working with an aviation services company that basically services airplanes on the tarmac. Everything you see outside the airplane itself is what they do. And they wanted to do a contract in Europe to take over Heathrow and a couple of their airports. So it was new business for them. It was existing business that another vendor had, but they wanted. So part of the bid process was that all the vendors submitted their bids based on the additional headcount that we needed. Get it? So they built it in, but they were thinking that they're actually not going to need that headcount because they're going to use RPA to scale their business from the U.S. to Europe. But they're going to win the bid based on the headcount totals, which can be very lucrative to them because they're not actually going to hire the people, and they're going to make the people they have now more efficient to take on the extra business and also process, automate a lot of the additional business. So, and that, to answer your question, that's one way they scale their business. And the traditional bidding method is still using headcount. So for a company that's a little bit more aggressive on the technology side, they're going to make big margins, and until everyone else starts to catch up. So everyone's bidding the same way with headcount. If you don't use headcount, then especially when business unit, big markets.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest example that we have of not needing to add headcount would be the COVID testing group, right?
How many people would you have had to hire?
Oh my gosh, to handle 70,000 transactions a day, people are entering approximately, on a good day, 500 per person per day. So what's 70,000 divided by 500? That's about the number of people you would need. I mean, it was just not even feasible. Yeah. Yeah.
You may have mentioned this. How much is the cost of a bot?
Depends on the situation that you're in. So if you are just taking a bot and you want to build something for yourself, so I know UiPath does it. I think Blue Prism does it. I don't know about Automation Anywhere, and Power Automate is already included. But those have community editions, so it's free to get the software. So the cost is your time and effort to build it. When you start to get a little bit bigger on a larger scale, then the licensing cost for a bot really heavily depends on the software that you get. So Automation Anywhere is typically designed for the large multi-billion-dollar organizations, and those are the kind of deployments that they're doing. UiPath, a bot license for an unattended license, I think it's around, for attended, it's about $1,300 per year per bot. For the attended, for the unattended, I always get this confused. I think it's around $7,000 a year. That's the last time I checked, was roughly that area. Yeah. So for us, our labor costs would never justify buying an unattended bot because the markets that we're in, the labor rates are low. So we'll never pay that. And I've talked with software vendors about that too. And they're like, well, that's our pricing structure. Yes?
So you mentioned that in a lot of companies, you may not have to lay off staff, right? So the staff just have time to think, and so you're not laying off staff in certain companies. So where do we see the cost reduction, considering that you are not laying off staff, right? But you are going to incur costs on this bot. So how do you justify the additional costs, considering that you are not laying off the staff? They are still paying their salaries, they are paying the bot maintenance, and they are paying you etc.
Well, we see it as in value creation. So you don't have to reduce your costs because you're creating more value. Your people are freed up to do things like build bots. And the bot market right now is high. And so what we've experienced is that we can't afford to let people go because we need more and more people. And so even though our operations are becoming more and more efficient and the people aren't doing the work, we want to let them go, right?
So does that mean that more of the benefit is for the employee, like they have time to grow in the company, but how does that affect the bottom line of the company? Because these employees will wake up tomorrow and leave the company anyway. So that means you are developing the employees, but how does the employer benefit directly, cost money-wise in all of this?
So let's take a scenario.
Especially for smaller companies, right? Yeah. I don't want to use the company where they are processing 70,000. I'm talking about smaller companies that are not necessarily scaling and are still operating at their sustainable level or the current level. So how do they see the benefits?
Yeah, so let's say you have an employee that's doing a particular task and you automate it with a bot. And you got two options. You can let go of the employee and then you get the direct value of the bot, right? Or you can keep the employee and the employee does higher value work and that higher value comes through in revenues. So to me, that's kind of the two options that you have. If the employee chooses to leave, then you've got the efficiencies of the bots. And so the company's going to win either way. The hope is that your employees stay and create more value. I mean, that's my hope anyway for my employees.
Second question is, have you experienced any company that even after the installation of the bot, their productivity is still did not increase significantly.
Still did not increase.
Significantly. Like, even after installing all of this, there wasn't an improvement in productivity. Error rate is probably not significantly lower. Have you ever experienced that?
Have I experienced that? I have not experienced that. Have we built bots that don't get utilized? Yeah, we have. People think that this is going to be a common process. Or one of the things that we learned is that sometimes people want you to build a bot that is going to clean up a project. And so it just does it one thing and then it's done. And so we kind of learned, all right, let's ask if this is going to be a continuing thing or is this going to be a project cleanup thing. But as far as dedicating time and resources and it just being upside down, I think that probably happens more when you have people who are trying to do a deployment of RPA and they don't have the knowledge and the skills to implement it directly, and they don't have the support that they need in order to make it happen the correct way. For us, it could have easily happened that way because there's no documentation at the time as to how to scale this thing, and we didn't know, so it was a risk. I think there's a lot better documentation out there now. I would hope that people understand it before they start spending money on it, but it could be an R&D cost that you just don't quite get right. I mean, like, the biggest risk is the 90-10 thing that I'm talking about. I mean, you got to have people that are persistent, that are willing to go through the pain of having to fix it and fix it and fix it and fix it until they learn it. Yes?
Are you seeing corporations build out RPA capabilities in-house versus going to a vendor like OnCue or?
What I've seen is initially when we started up, the RPA vendors were going and selling the entire solution to large companies and to medium-sized companies and basically saying, here it is, figure it out and send me some money. And what I'm seeing now is a little bit of a shift to let's just engage with the company on basically as a bots as a service type model. So people know who've already beat their heads against the wall long enough. Why am I going to do that? Because they can offer a solution that is going to guarantee me all of these benefits and guarantee me that it's going to be a lower price per transaction, so I don't take any risk. And so that is, I mean, we offer all of the different pricing options, and pretty much everybody except for one has gone with that option. So, and it just makes sense, yeah.
I've seen a really large North American pipeline company that has their own department called Emerging Technologies within it, and they do their own bots. So every other department within the company will submit a process that they want automated, and we'll go to the Emerging Technology Center, which is a pretty cool setup. This is a pretty progressive company, and then they'll prioritize which ones get done, and then they'll put actually put kind of a profit center in a way they'll charge for the buyouts of the different business centers. So it's pretty neat. And then, so for us as a company, I work for this Jack subsidiary. So is that bad for us because they're doing it themselves? Not necessarily, because we have international labor rates that are different. So this North American pipeline company I spoke to, they're doing it themselves, but they have high cost resources in North America. So then my angle might be, well, it's great that you're doing it, but maybe we can help you do some of the work for a lower cost.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. This was a very informative, really, amazing topic. And I hope that next time all of us are going to be in a room, someone asks if we have familiarity with RPA, we're going to raise our hands as well. We actually have a small gift for you. Thank you so much. It's just a token of our appreciation.
All right, thank you.
And all our guests, thank you so much for you all as well for joining us. We have a reception here right next door. If you can please stay and join us at the event. We all are going to just head that way right next door here. And if you don't mind, just wait for a photo with us and the board members. That would be
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much.